Good morning guys and welcome to another video. In this video I show you how I made a special kid's bed out of scrap wood. Also I will explain a simply mathematical formula that you can use to calculate an even distance between slats of a fence. Although I tried one or two special methods, you can still easily build the bed yourself. For example, I tried to use wooden dominoes for the joints, even though I don't own a domino router. For this I just used my regular router. I also used some epoxy resin to seal holes and cracks. And of course you can also build the bed without any dominoes or epoxy at all. At the beginning of the video you saw the plan I used for the bed. I made the plan in the free web version of SketchUp. SketchUp is an easy to learn software for creating 3D objects. Although it's easy to learn, it still takes time to master. This project is my first project that I have created in SketchUp. And of course there is still potential for improvement. The practical thing about the 3D plan is that you can print out different views from different directions, which is what I did. If you look closely, you can just see the prints on the bottom right of the video, where they are lying around. Right now in the video I'm struggling with my dust extraction. My actual dust collection system gets full very quickly with so many wood chips, which is why I use a normal vacuum cleaner for the planer, because it can't be emptied much quicker. At some point I will have to take care of this problem. Here you can see a digital angle gauge. I'm using it for the first time to align the saw blade accurately. The angle gauge has a magnet on the bottom, so I can place it directly on the saw blade. This project is very easy to copy. You don't need a jointer for it, or you don't need a table saw either. You can just buy prepared wood from a wood dealer or from a construction market. After I had planed all the pieces, I cut them to size. The largest pieces for the lower frame on which the slatted frame will later lie have a height of 10 cm and a width of 7 cm. The bed itself is a slightly larger bed than usual. It has a width of 120 cm and a standard length of 200 cm. The angle for the upper triangle is 67.5 degrees on both sides. In total 135. We need this angle to reach 45 degrees at the apex. After marking all the pieces, I started to cut them to the right length. For this I used my miter saw. My miter saw is really old and cuts rather crooked and is really not reliable anymore. I always had to manually recut the pieces, because the saw somehow didn't cut the pieces completely.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
Later I also noticed that the angle of the saw is extremely inaccurate, which led to some difficulties, but more about that later. Always make sure you use the right bit for your router, or this is exactly what will happen. I didn't want that kind of edge, I just wanted a round one. However, I used this piece anyway. I just sanded off the extra little edge. In my case it doesn't matter because the wood I used has a very vintage look either way. Some pieces have cracks or old holes from a woodworm, for example. For this video I needed more time than usual. The biggest problem with this project was that I used two different cameras. I started filming with my smartphone and in the middle of the process I switched to an older camcorder. And unfortunately there were strange software bugs with the camcorder files, which really caused me problems while editing the video. As mentioned before, I used some epoxy for cracks and holes. The epoxy I used was nothing special. However, when I need larger amounts, I usually use epoxy from Apotex. And no, unfortunately, this is not a sponsored video. I mean, who would sponsor such a crappy video? By the way, here you can see the wormholes I keep talking about. There are a lot of YouTubers who use epoxy. Unfortunately, most of them do not use any safety precautions. When you mix the resin and the hardener together, there is a chemical reaction that also produces some kind of gas. My research has shown that you should not necessarily inhale this gas. That is the reason why I use a gas mask for this work. At least I use it most of the time, and definitely when I mix larger quantities together. So people, buy a good mask. You can get this mask for, I would say, 30 to 40 euros, and your health is one of the most important things in life. Personally, I use this mask also for grinding work or work where wood dust can occur. Wood dust is not only unpleasant to the nose, but also causes cancer. As you can see here, I tried to fill smaller holes with sawdust and CA glue. However, the result was disappointing at best. The color was darker than the wood. In the video I also try other methods to fill holes. I would put the method with the super glue in the middle range. The biggest advantage is that you can fill holes very quickly and there is no waiting time. I had to do a lot of sanding in this project, because I made every piece from scrap wood. If I had bought the wood, I would have finished twice as fast. Anyway, the journey is the goal. And we woodworkers don't do things to be fast. I also finally had the opportunity to use my father's old hand plane again. By the way, it's currently the only hand plane I own. Someday I want to buy a better one, but like so many people these days, we also have to watch the money a bit. As announced, I tried to make a few joints with dominoes. I marked the holes for the dominoes and cut them out with my router. I also tried to make the holes for the dominoes with a wood drill and wood chisels. But the result was really bad and it took much longer in comparison. I don't think I would try any more dominoes without the special domino router. It took a lot of time and the result was, I would say, just okay. Unfortunately, I'm far too self-critical for something like that. I think normal wooden dowel joints would have been better. And please don't tell me that I should have been tried or used dovetail joints. My skills are not good enough for that yet, or my tools are too cheap or bad.
Oh!
For the small fences of the bed, I used a mathematical formula to get an equal distance between the boards. And the formula is as follows. The desired width of the boards times their number minus the maximum length of the fence, divided by the number of boards plus 1. Maybe there are easier solutions. If you know any, feel free to post them in the comments. With the formula you only need to know how many boards should be in the fence, so you just have to try something. I milled a groove in the top and bottom battens for the boards. However, I think that this is not absolutely necessary. You could also connect the boards with dowels or maybe even just glue them together. Unfortunately, I also had small gaps between the battens and the boards. I tried to close these gaps with wood glue and sawdust. However, the result was terrible. The sawdust darkened a lot and it reminded no longer on its lighter original color. I would have loved to show you the result, but unfortunately I deleted it by mistake. I probably used a little too much glue for the upper batten of the fence. I thought I could simply wipe the glue away with some water or cleaner, but somehow that didn't work very well. Maybe the glue is difficult to remove because it is a waterproof glue. In any case, I thought it shouldn't be a problem in the liquid state. Feel free to write in the comments what your experience are here. In the middle, I stopped wiping the glue away and decided to just let the glue harden and then scrape it away with a wood chisel. And it turned out it was the easiest solution. Then it was time to assemble the rest of the bed, and this is where my homemade dominoes really came into their own for the first time. And I would say it worked better than expected, to be honest. But I wouldn't use homemade dominoes again. At least not in this way. For the bed, the head end and the foot end were completely glued together, as well as the two side panels. Here I use a very popular trick among YouTubers. I use painter's tape on two parts that I want to connect temporarily. These two parts will be glued together with simply super glue. The difference to normal double-sided tape is that the painter's tape leaves no adhesive residue. Unfortunately, this trick worked only moderately for me, which is why I clamped the parts to the table anyway. As you can see, I have huge gaps between the pieces. Unfortunately, a miter saw was just too badly adjusted. It must also be said that my miter saw is a really low budget device, and therefore also has its limits in terms of accuracy. However, I didn't want to leave these holes either. And super glue with wood dust or wood glue with wood dust didn't really satisfy me. So I tried to push in some small wood chips with wood glue, which I could sand afterwards. And I have to say, I like this solution the most. But of course, no holes would have been the best. After I had finished assembling the top and bottom end, I started with the side parts, or more precisely with the fences. I built these fences in the same way as the fences on the top and bottom parts. I just let the excess glue harden again and then removed it with a wood chisel. Of course I couldn't glue the whole bed together because I had to be able to transport it to another place. So I pre-drilled holes for M8 wood screws at the locations of the side panels. On the sides where the screws would have been visible, I drilled the first piece a little wider and then I used these wooden stubs. These wooden stubs are not self-made, I ordered them directly from Amazon. They were natural and I could use the same finish. I also used M8 wood screws for the smaller fans of one of the side panels, so that I can dismantle it at some point if necessary. For the finish I used Robio Monocoat in the color Dark Oak. And if you can read, you have a clear advantage, because the mixing ratio is 3:1, which means 3 parts of the oil and 1 part of the hardener. Of course I messed up and used the wrong ratio, 2:1. I honestly don't know what the consequences are. If anyone has experience with this, please let me know in the comments. So that the slatted frame for the mattress doesn't have to lie on the floor, I cut several pieces of plywood. Then I glued the pieces together with glue wood and screwed them to the lower edge of the bed frame. Finally the time had come and I could assemble the bed in the kids' room. To be on the safe side, I used also metal brackets at the corners which were screwed to the frame. I hope you enjoyed the video. A subscription and a like would be great. Thank you and see you next time.